Welcome to the My Crazy Office podcast with the authors of Working With You Is Killing Me, Working For You Isn't Working For Me, and Mean Girls at Work, Kathy Elster and Catherine Crowley. They're committed to creating world peace, one crazy office at a time. And now, here are Kathy and Catherine.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Elster.
And I'm Catherine Crowley, and welcome to My Crazy Office.
Here we are. I like the questions today. Why don't we just get to it? What do we have,
Okay.
Logan?
I'm in the midst of salary negotiation for a new job. I thought I'd made it clear that I wanted a salary within a specific dollar amount when the search committee asked what my salary range was. The official office letter that I received, however, listed a salary that is $5,000 less than the low end of my range. What should I do?
Oh, dear.
Well, I don't, I think, first of all, I think it's a mistake that they made. But it may not be a mistake. But you can't be afraid to go back and renegotiate.
Uh-huh.
I think it's fine to go back and renegotiate.
What would you do? Call them? Send an email?
I think it should be a call.
Right, because you don't want to put anything in writing necessarily early in the game.
Things get read in a different tone.
Yeah.
So I think it's a phone call to just say, this may have been an oversight, or maybe, this is what you want to pay. But after some careful consideration, I really need to stick to my original request.
Not, I thought I told you that my range is not that kind of tone. That's not good.
Well, I think you can take that tone if you don't want the job. No,
Right.
I think what happens when people get this is they feel insulted. Oh, they don't think I'm valuable.
Yeah.
And they start to go down that rabbit hole. And then they're afraid to call up and say, oh, you may have made a mistake here.
Yeah.
Or, I've really seriously looked at the numbers and I've done the math. I do need to stick to my guns.
Yeah.
If I 5,000
Or I'll bring a gun. I think the problem.
Oh my God.
And go postal in this office.
Wow.
My crazy murderous office.
I'm being very
God.
facetious. That, of course, would never happen. Actually, what's true, what you were saying about the money is that it's very tricky territory. And
Yes.
people who are great at negotiating all kinds of things may have a hard time asking for what they need in a salary discussion, right? So you might feel that, all right, I said it once. I shouldn't have to say it again, right?
Right. Or maybe they wrote the wrong number down, or maybe,
Yeah.
you should, that's right. Yeah. I also think that you're not asking for a lot of money. It wasn't off by 100,000, it was off by 5,000, which I
Yeah.
think if you figure that out a month is like $400. I mean, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
So I think it's standing up for yourself. And I don't, many jobs would require that. They would require that,
You stand up for yourself.
right, and you're able to ask for what you want.
What I was thinking is that this person should hire you and have you help them write a script because when you're teaching sales, you always taught about how to handle the objections, right? So if they're afraid of hearing something like, no, that's we can't do that, or that's not what you said, or something like that they can be ready to come back with a response. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's true. Many times if you just are not in sales, you don't deal with this on a daily basis. But
Yeah.
people that are in sales or in a position of negotiating, this is like nothing for them.
Right, talking money.
This is like, oh, so they made a mistake. I just have to call up and get more money.
Yeah.
Right. But if this is not what you do on a regular basis, you do want to hire me, or as Catherine said, or you do want to talk to somebody who knows
You want
how to do this.
support
Yeah.
because
You
it's
wanna
a
know the right
scary
words.
conversation if it's not your area,
Right.
Right.
It shouldn't be, though, in that this is something that everybody has to learn in their professional life, how to ask for money.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to negotiate other things in your life. It's just not, not just your job. Right?
So suck it up and learn the skills.
you're
Don't
right.
you
No,
have to
it's
negotiate?
true.
Don't you negotiate all the time? I
One
feel like I
does.
always am.
Yes, you
Can you do better?
Well,
Can we
I'm
get-
not as good at negotiating as you are.
Yes, Kathy, you're like an expert in negotiating.
I'm not. I'm very good at collecting money, but I'm not good at negotiating for it. So I think, and part of it for me is that I worry that I'm going to sound greedy or unappreciative. Sure. So
Okay,
I have
so-
to have a script for me to say what I need to say.
All right, so it's all of those emotions. See, take the emotion out. This is really the bottom line with negotiating. It's true. I
It's
negotiate.
just about the money.
Well, no,
It's just about
not
your value.
personal.
Right.
It's business, and there's always wiggle room in every negotiation. So I just negotiated our telephone contract with them.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
And like Catherine, I remember one day, you said, "Oh, respond to him." And I was like, "No, I'm going to let him sweat.
Yes.
I'll respond to him tomorrow."
Yes.
And of course, I got what I wanted. You have to be willing to ask for things. They
Yeah.
don't just come to you magically. And if you're somebody who things do come to you magically, that will stop one day. I promise you. That doesn't last very long.
Well, that's a good point. I think that if it's because this is all about asking. So if asking is difficult for you, then a salary conversation is going to be difficult, number one. And you may have some magical thinking attached to it. Like if I spit it out, it should just go the right way. Do you know what I mean? If I'm able to say, well, I need to be paid between 220 and 200, and they don't come in the way you want them to, then you may be sort of paralyzed, not ready to say the next thing you need to say.
Okay. You have to remember in business that people start out low
Yeah.
Right.
in everything they do. I mean, if they're offering a salary, they're going to start out low. They're not going to start at the high end.
Yeah.
They're going to see if you're going to ask for more. If you don't ask
Right.
for more, they look good to somebody else.
Right.
Because they've done a good job of saving the company money.
Right.
So, you have
It's
to
not
just...
personal.
It's not.
No.
It's just about money. And you have to know that in business, that there's
Yeah.
always wiggle room. I think there's always wiggle room.
Yeah. Or if not, then it may not be the place for you. I mean, if you take a lower salary, like if this person does not come back and say anything and instead takes the salary that's $5,000 less than he or she originally wanted, right? Then that low range, then they may resent that from going forward.
I can guarantee they're going to resent that will be a sticking point every time something happens that
Yeah.
they're not happy about, and I'm not getting my full salary.
Yeah.
That's going to come up. I mean, they sought after us to write the question. This
Yeah.
is going to be an issue. So to ask for it, I think if it feels like a brave thing to do, a courageous thing to do, then go do it. You're doing
Yeah.
it for yourself. This is a good thing.
And consider it a practice is what you're saying.
Right.
This is practice for life.
Right.
You'll have more conversations. Hopefully you'll have more conversations like this.
There's a lot of books on negotiating skills, and they basically all say the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is that you have to be willing to walk away. You have
Yeah.
to be willing, in order to ask for what you want, you have to know you may not get it. And that
Yeah.
has to be okay. That's sort of the key to the whole thing. But you have to be willing to ask.
Yeah.
You just really have to. And it's okay to always go back and say, I've rethought this, or I've thought more about it.
Yeah.
I've crunched the numbers. This is not going to work. It's not you know what? The person who you're calling is accustomed to this.
That's right. That's their job. That's part of what they deal with these conversations.
They don't, hold the phone and say, "Oh my God, can you believe that this person?" No, that doesn't happen.
I'm going to put them on speaker.
They just think, "Okay, you know what? 5 is not even that bad." Okay.
Right. That's right.
So don't settle.
Yeah, don't
back and
settle. Go
bring it up.
back and
Go
speak
back.
up for yourself.
Have that conversation. If you need to get support so that you know you have a script, so that the scary things, like if you're worried about certain comeback, you're ready to respond. Right?
Right.
Okay.
Good luck.
I'm recently out of college and looking for work in the music industry. Last week, I walked into a small music production company looking for part-time staff, and I'm pretty sure I smelled pot. The guy who interviewed me appeared very relaxed, and everyone else seemed a little lethargic. They offered me a job on the spot, but I felt a little uncomfortable. Is every music company going to be like this?
It's more than the
It's
music.
more than the
company.
music company.
This is a pretty
I kind
regular.
of want to say yes.
Yeah, this is a pretty regular thing now. And I mean, you were saying, Catherine, you thought that pot was on the uptick. I think it's always been there. Maybe it is. Maybe,
Well, I
'cause
think
it's
that
legal.
it's trumping alcohol in many situations, in many places now. That
Oh,
it's,
is it?
In other words, you can smoke weed through your workday, but you can't drink through your workday publicly now. I think that it's a more acceptable way of having your mind altered throughout the day. Yeah.
Yeah, we live in we work in sort of a funky building in Chelsea in New York where
Yeah.
you smell pot in this building all
I do when I go down
Right?
to the 8th floor to use a restroom. I always smell it.
Yeah. Let me explain.
You hear
He
that
goes to
eighth
that
floor?
bathroom
Yeah,
because
yes.
ours is under renovation
For 3 years.
I don't want you to think that Logan just
Yeah, I just like to get a little extra cardio in for the day and go up and down the stairs.
By the way, I'm a little over the construction going on in
Yeah.
this building. But anyway, this is sort of an indie building. It's all small businesses.
Yeah.
There's no really big spaces. And I know we're on the top floor, so people go up to the roof to smoke all the time. And I see them come down.
Yeah.
And they, you know, it used to be that they had a little bit of a shame walk. No more.
Right. This is very common in the music industry. Actually, when I was studying production,
Yeah.
some of my teachers would give us a heads up about stuff like this.
Oh, really? It's
Yeah.
talked about.
It's definitely talked about, especially in production and in studio.
Yeah.
It's very, very common to be around pot and to be around other harder drugs.
Yes.
Well,
besides
that's what I was going to
pot.
say.
Right.
You're entering and you want to be in an industry that, and it's part of the entertainment industry where alcohol, weed, and various drugs are sort of part of the territory. But I think that it is fair. I think one thing that you can find out is whether the company is like just a stoned, lethargic, not doing much company, because I've seen those, or where this is part of the activity, but there's a lot of creative stuff happening.
Yeah, and I also think it doesn't really exist to this, you know, where you come in on the interview and smell it
Yeah.
in large companies.
Right.
I think
That's
it's not
true.
tolerated. It's mostly in the smaller businesses that are more, you know, just laid back.
Right. Well, and there's some probably companies and business, more mature business owners who are in recovery now after having abused drugs and alcohol for many years. You could look for one of those companies.
Oh, rehab.
In
company.
rehab, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
sure. Why not? I mean, you may be dealing with other issues in that kind of situation, but who knows?
But I think that you're going to, you know, drug abuse is at an all-time high. I just think that you're going to run into this everywhere. But to come in on the interview that they were that laxed,
Yeah.
that, you know, they didn't even say to one another, hey, you know, so, you know,
Let's wait until after this
right.
person
Company's
leaves
coming.
to-
Open the windows.
right. We're going to be interviewing somebody, and they didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I think that that's you basically saw who they are.
Yeah.
So if it's not for
Right.
you, it's not for you.
Well, if you're a go-getter, which it sounds like this person may be, you know, more of a go-getter. So if the guy was very relaxed and everyone else seemed lethargic, again, just culturally, it may not be the best place for you.
and then again, it may. It all depends.
Depending on your orientation.
Yeah, it's depending on what you like to do with your time.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't know if it's sad. I don't know. I mean, when I first entered the workplace, alcohol was really,
Yeah.
you know, you would go out to lunch and people would get drunk at lunch, and
Yeah.
and nobody, you know, I was in the fashion industry. Nobody really had an issue with that.
Right.
I did. I thought it was boring that we really only had a 4-hour workday because by lunchtime everybody was sort of out of it. But you know, I don't know what else to say.
I don't know. I see why this person is uncomfortable, and if they feel in their gut that they shouldn't work there, then they
Yeah.
probably shouldn't work there. But they should expect that, especially in a music
Right.
industry, that they're going to come up with this issue pretty.
It's the
pretty
same thing
frequently.
as with the seller. You have to walk away if it's not acceptable for you,
sure,
but
sure.
you're going to have to do some extra looking, probably.
So what did they tell you in school? How to deal with that? What did they say? Or just that you're going to run into it?
Just that you're going to run into it and be prepared, and also to not expect that every single person is going to expect you to engage in that.
Yeah.
And if they are, then be okay and learn how to say no and
Yeah.
walk away from it if you are uncomfortable and you don't
That's
want to
the
do things like
challenge.
that.
I
and
think that's a really
don't
good
ever feel
point.
pressured, especially this person's coming right out of college. You're young.
Yeah.
You know, we did hear a story recently about somebody we know who, and it's in the art world, that
Yeah.
she felt pressured to smoke pot at
Yeah.
Right.
her boss's house.
Yeah.
And she felt if she didn't, it would have been unacceptable.
Yeah.
Right.
So she did. I mean, the truth was she had a good time, but that's not the case for everybody. Some people get paranoid and they don't want to be under that pressure.
Yeah.
So that's not the music industry. So this is a really important question.
Yeah. Well, and what do you do if that's not your thing? And same with alcohol or same
So
with
what
other
do you
drugs.
do?
I think you could do a number of things. You could say no, thank you, but then you're going to have to deal with whatever the kickback is
Right.
with that. You can. Some people fake it.
I was going to say that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would make believe I was doing it.
Yeah.
And then not. I mean, I do that with alcohol all the time. It
Right.
looks like I'm drinking alcohol, but I'm not.
Pretend you're nursing. That's the only time when I think that'd be a problem is if they're passing a bong around because
And you can't fake. Well, you
it's
can go to
hard
the
to
bathroom.
fake that one. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a hard one to fake. But so you can excuse yourself for certain things. But
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that these people would care if this person didn't
That's right.
decide
They may
to
not
engage.
care.
They may not care. They may say okay,
Right.
and not have it be a big thing.
I don't know. Well,
It depends. I think it's a
depends,
case by
right.
case. And people who are really addicted, addicts usually like to have company.
yeah.
So it's those people that tend to have a hard time if you're not willing, where you'll hear something about it.
Do you think this person should ask?
Do I have to smoke pot
Say,
if
hey,
I work here?
Yeah, yeah. just be blunt and
No, I
and
think
very forward about it.
Well, you could say something like, am I the only person who doesn't smoke pot here?
That
would be a
It
qualifying
doesn't have
statement.
to be, super serious. They can kind of, be fun with it and see kind of the person's reaction with their response.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to go with it,
Mm-hmm.
not question it up front. That's just my instinct.
Years ago,
It's not legal. I mean, it's not
not.
legal.
It's not.
It's all right. It's. I don't
But
think
it
it's.
is in any creative anything in the art world, in the music
there.
world, in fashion. It's there, and it's
There.
pretty impossible to. There's other things in the music industry that you can do besides working in a studio or rehearsals. Maybe studio isn't for him.
yeah.
Maybe start exploring different branches within the music industry that aren't in that kind of field. I don't know.
Maybe health clinics that service.
the addicts.
That services former musicians and
But don't you think that in the health field where drugs are so available that they have really big problems?
Well, there's a different form of abuse that can take place, certainly, in medical.
Yeah, they're not sharing it. I've been sitting around sharing it in the office.
right.
Yeah.
It's probably
office
it's
doesn't
probably
smell
pure
like-
and not
Right.
mixed with anything
It doesn't
else.
smell like prescription drugs in the office, I don't think.
It smells like Xanax in here. I don't know.
I think what we're saying is that it's everywhere. You have to pick your battles.
Yeah, so
Right,
but
right.
it is very understandable when you're new to the work world to be a little intimidated by those kinds of environments. And what we're also saying is you can find out which cultures, you mentioned, Kathy, that if it's a larger, more formal corporate structure,
Yeah,
the
it'll-
likelihood is it's not going to smell like
It'll be
weed in the
hidden.
halls.
It'll be hidden.
Only in the stairwells. So,
cars.
yeah, you can look for a place where that's not the prevalent way of operating.
All right. Well, that's it for this segment of My Crazy Office.
Crazy. So join us next time for another My Crazy Office podcast. If you enjoyed this one, please review us on iTunes and don't forget to send your questions and your stories to info@mycrazyoffice.co.
My Crazy Office is produced in New York City at K Squared Studios. Stay crazy.